Hi everyone, my name is Dmitry Gutkov. I'm the founder of EasyMorph, and today we will talk about how to organize your work with data and information and applications in your organization to bring your work productivity to a whole new level. But before we dive into details, let's start with a bit of historical overview. When we talk about enterprise automation, we can clearly see multiple phases. Well, the first phase started probably somewhere in the 1970s of the previous century, and it was the initial phase of business automation. So back then, many organizations started switching from paper processes and documents to digital records in computers, in databases. That was the time when first databases appeared. And also, it was the time when organizations started creating and selling business automation software. All that lasted for probably a couple of days, while eventually it became clear that, well, there is no point in reinventing the bicycle and creating similar business applications again and again, but instead organizations can use software designed by a third party, and that software can be used to automate whole organizations, whole enterprises. And that was the beginning of the era of monoliths, where giant enterprise suites such as SAP or Siebel or Oracle were used to automate organizations basically top down, where all major functions and departments of an organization could be automated by software from a single vendor. Eventually, that era morphed into something new, into a new with the popularization of the internet. About in 2010s, we could see the beginning of the era of SaaS, or software as a service. Apparently, customers didn't want to use only one software suite to automate. They wanted to have a choice, and also probably the pricing policies of large enterprise vendors like SAP also left a lot to desire. So in about 2010s, we could see the explosion of all kinds of cloud-based applications. Most of them are cloud-based, designed to automate every possible and impossible business need. So basically, it was the same principle as with the mobile applications. There is an app for that. So there is an app for task management. There is an app for managing meetings. There is an app for recruitment. There is an app for calculations. There is an app for charting and data visualization, and so on. So there is an app for that. As a result, we see thousands, probably tens of thousands of different applications, a huge variety, many of them highly specialized and doing their job very well. But at the same time, we see very high fragmentation. And as we will see it in a moment, that fragmentation is quite significant. It looks like it's time to move on and go beyond the era of SaaS and look for ways how to unify data and applications and business records and teams, so that people can work more conveniently, they can find the information they need more easily, and they can automate easier and achieve their business goals with less hassle. Let's look at the statistics, at the research. An organization called Better Cloud did the research and found that the average organization uses 109 SaaS applications on average. In big organizations, you can see that numbers goes as high as 130 and even more. In another research, we could see that the average organization uses, in general, more than 400 data sources. That includes SaaS applications, but also internal business applications, probably customly developed in-house. A research made by Asana, a task management application, found that the average user nowadays switches between 9 applications every day. So, and that's the average number. So some people work with 2 or 3 dozens of applications every day, and that's a lot. That's a lot. So you have to learn the user interface of every application. You have to learn how to glue them together, if it's even possible. Sometimes it's not possible. I've evidenced my favorite story about this is when I visit my local bank branch. Then the teller writes down my customer number on a piece of paper and then tries to look it up in different systems. Why? Because those systems are not integrated. The teller cannot just click a link and open the necessary information on my records. And that's why the teller needs to write down that customer number manually. So that's just one example, but I believe you can find many similar examples from your own experience. If you look at the typical landscape of an organization, you will see lots of different applications, tools, and systems. And let's be honest, they are not well integrated together. Every application has its own user interface, has its own quirks, and navigating, finding, and doing something when you have a very disconnected, very basically like a patchwork of different apps and tools with different pieces of data. Well, that can be challenging, and that definitely impacts your work productivity. Many people would say, "Well, how else can it be?" Well, that's just the way it is. Well, it's inevitable evil. We at EasyMorph, we don't believe so. So we believe it can be different. And in the next 20 or 30 minutes, we will demonstrate how exactly this can be overcome and how exactly you can organize your work to bring your work productivity to a whole new level. Start with virtualizing data assets. So whatever application you use, the applications themselves are not that important. It's the data inside those applications that is important. And also it's the operations, or it's the tools and algorithms in those applications. This is what's important. And therefore, if you look at most business applications and systems, we can see that they can be abstracted away into just 4 asset types. The first asset type is tables of records. Basically, it's an asset type that is a table, and the vast majority of business automation systems, they either record events or transactions or some other type of business data, but in the essence, it's just a table. So such systems can be abstracted away to return a table of records. Well, that table of records can be partial, so you can define attributes such as start date or end date, but generally speaking, it's just a table of records. Examples of business applications that can be abstracted away to a set of tables of records can be on-premises databases, cloud applications like Salesforce, or Google Sheets or Airtable, cloud data warehouses like Snowflake or Amazon Redshift, web APIs that sort data through OData or just REST APIs. It can be files, spreadsheets, Apache Parquet, CSV files. But most importantly is that it's not the systems themselves that are abstracted away. It's the data that they contain. Customers, products, transactions. These are your data assets, and they can be virtualized. Second type of asset, web page, or anything that has a web URL that unambiguously identifies a web resource. With that type of asset, the standard operation is open in browser. Examples of such assets include BI dashboards such as Power BI or Tableau. It can also be applications like Google Maps that show locations and where a location can be specified just by URL, by a web address. And surprisingly, cloud apps like Salesforce, they can also be presented as a web page asset. So it's normal when two apps are represented as two different asset types, because that represents different operations that you can perform with this application. Again, with Salesforce, you can use a URL to go to a particular, let's say, customer profile or display some order. The next asset type are file storage systems. And with file storage systems, the two standard operations are browse and download. The examples include, network folders. It's one of the most popular destinations to store files and spreadsheets. And in big organizations, you can find network folders with probably millions of files stored in vast hierarchies of folders, and it's definitely a challenge to remember what is what or to find what's necessary. Then cloud applications like OneDrive or Google Drive that used to store and organize files. They all have the same standard operations: browsing, downloading, uploading, and managing. More technical data sources like Amazon S3 or Azure Blob Storage, or even SFTP servers. These are also examples of assets that they can be represented as a file or a folder. Again, as with the tables of records, it's not the application itself that is an asset; it's the data. It's the data in it. So let's say you can have a folder with invoices. So your asset is invoice. You can have a folder with a purchase order. So your asset is a purchase order. So assets have a business meaning. Finally, the last type of assets that is quite common is a program or action. This type of asset has one standard action, which is execute with arguments. And we are talking about programs that are not interactive, that don't have a graphical user interface. These are programs that can be executed or actions that can be executed by calling something and providing arguments. So the examples include Python scripts and PowerShell scripts. It can be stored procedures in databases. You can also trigger actions using API calls or running SSH commands on remote machines. And even VBA macros, you can also view them as programs that can be executed with arguments. And of course, standard and common program languages like C# or Java can fit into this category. So as we can see, we can have a huge multitude of applications and platforms and tools, but many of them can be abstracted away into just these 4 types. And for every type, there is a set of standard operations. That means that we can introduce one standard user interface to work with any of these asset types, and that user interface will perform the standard operations, no matter what's behind the asset. And this is what we call data asset virtualization. By itself, it already simplifies accessing data and working with data, but that's not it. There is a much more to the story. So let's go to step 2. So in step 2, we link assets. So what does that mean? Since we abstract away our apps and data in them, and we rather create semantic assets such as customers, orders, transactions, without specifying where exactly this information is stored. It allows us to link related assets, and we link them to create a single browsable, actionable web of data. Well, think about the internet. The internet the internet consists of probably millions of different web servers. Those web servers can be implemented using different technology. It can be Apache, it can be Nginx, it can be IIS. Well, there are different types of web servers, applications, frameworks that are used to build websites. But we browse all the websites. We can access any website using the same web browser, the same application, be it Firefox or Chrome or Microsoft Edge. All the websites can be accessed by the same browser. So, and you can go from one website to another website just clicking a link. So a similar principle is implemented in EasyMorph. So you can go from one asset to another asset, or trigger an action such as downloading a file, just by clicking a link. So, for instance, if we have an asset customers, the data source behind this asset can be anything. It can be, let's say, Snowflake, or it can be a local database, or it can be a mix of different sources. And this asset is basically computed on the fly. That's possible as well. So here we have a record with one company, and different fields in this record can be linked to other assets. For instance, if we have an asset for the customer page in Salesforce, well, we can link it to the customer number field. For the name field, maybe we can link it to the current agreement. So in one click, we can download the current agreement with this customer, and the document, the PDF document, will come from Amazon S3. But I, as a user, I may not even realize this. I need the document. I click the link and I get the document. Another example: total orders. Again, I can click the value, and in one click, I can go and see related transactions, and those related transactions can come from a totally different system, but I will remain in the same application. I will remain in EasyMorph Explorer. Even, and doesn't matter if this information comes from a cloud application or on-premises system, or is it a database or a file or API call, doesn't matter. It's a tabular asset, and I will see it by clicking the link, and the records I will see will be pre-filtered to see exactly 4 transactions that are related to the 4 orders. Another example: address. In this example, I can click address, and in one click, I can go to Google Maps that will show me the location of this address. And it's an example of a web page asset that dynamically calculates the necessary URL based on the text value in the address field. Finally, if I want to change the address, I can call another asset, which is under the hood a Python script, and I ask the user, and I pass to the Python script a new address, and the Python script may do something complex with this address. For instance, it can do parsing, it can do verification. Is it the correct address? Can it be resolved? Can it be split into different components like country, state, city, street number? And this is what the Python script does under the hood. But for me, as a user, it's just one button click, and the whole algorithm is abstracted away from me. So I'm using it just as an asset, that is used to change address. So when we have all the assets that we work with linked together, we create something like a web of data. A web of data when we have different types of assets, customers, orders, transactions, inventory, employees, benefits, partners, and whatnot. Everything is linked together into one logically connected web of data that is specific for your organization. And that web of data, it's not just read-only, it's actionable. So you can trigger operations. Like for instance, you can edit records, you can enable, disable, raise flags, send emails, notify, create alerts, ship orders, and reconcile payments and whatnot. So you create a very actionable, vendor agnostic, always up to date web of data that works in any IT landscape, that can be integrated into any popular system or application, and it's all local, it's all private. It lives on premises. It doesn't send data to the cloud. And it's very easy to use because it uses one standard user interface that is the same no matter with what asset you work in that application. So to see how that works in practice, you can book individual demo or keep watching this video, and my colleague, Matt Fryer, will demonstrate how to use EasyMorph Explorer on practice.
So as Dimitri said at the beginning, we may have lots and lots and lots of different business tools and systems. So in order to understand how EasyMorph can help to solve some of these problems of disparate systems and data sources, let's take a look at a very simple scenario that should be familiar to everyone. And that scenario is of a sales team. They have opportunities with our customers all the way through to being able to bill them within our finance team to send invoices and get paid. That very simple process, even in a very simplified version of it, contains multiple systems and tools involved. The first of all is our CRM system. It's Salesforce in this instance. And that has lots of information in it that our sales team capture when they're interacting with customers and trying to win orders. But the most important ones are sort of the customers themselves and their information, the opportunities, and finally the orders that hopefully they place. Once that's happened, our finance team take over, and they also have information about those customers in order to send them invoices and hopefully get paid. And related to that is purchase order documents. So our customers issue us with purchase order documents, and we're not able to invoice them until we've received one of those purchase order documents. And they don't reside in either system. They sit on a Google Drive, shared drive. But this could be any file location. It doesn't really matter. And this biggest issue with this is that all of those three are entirely isolated and separate. Our sales team want to be able to access all of that information. They would have to log into three different places. That's if we wanted to even give them logins. We probably don't want to give our sales team access to our finance system. And so those number of problems that this segmentation or isolation of these systems causes is around syncing of those customers, so that when the sales team update a record for the customer, the finance team also have that latest up-to-date information, so they know they're sending the invoice to the right place or who they need to contact if there's a problem with their payment. All of those people also need to be able to access all of the data in these systems, so that both the finance team can see the orders that are being placed and what they're going to need to invoice. The sales team equally might want to see those invoices so that they know that when the customer is asking for a discount, they can check to see if the customer is actually paying their invoices on time. And if they're not, they might want to say no. And ultimately, they need to be able to take action as well on this data. So if there's a billing problem, the sales team might receive the call from the customer, but they need to interact and collaborate with the finance team in order to get that invoice problem solved so that they can move the customer forward and keep them happy. So let's take a look at the different systems involved first and how EasyMorph might be able to help us solve them. The first is Salesforce. This is our CRM system, as I said, and that has lots of information about all of our customers and accounts. And we can see a sample of customers in there. We can pick those customers and view different customers and see the opportunities that are available for those customers. We also have the finance system where we store all of our invoicing and our accounting, but we don't want our sales team to have access to that for obvious reasons. So we want to expose the information about the invoices to them, but not actually give them access. And finally, our third source is all of those PDF documents that we have of our purchase orders that we've received from our customers in order to allow us to invoice and bill them. So let's take a look at EasyMorph and how it can help us to solve this problem and bring those systems together and make those sales and finance teams better able to collaborate and work together and solve the problems and keep the customers happy. So the first thing we talked about was that problem of two copies of our customers. We have one in our Salesforce system and one in our finance system, and they're completely separate. The only way they get updated normally is if there's a change. We rely on the sales team having to tell the finance team to also make the change in the finance system or vice versa. But with EasyMorph, we can build a relatively simple workflow which connects to both of those sources, finds the list of customers from both, and syncs those up. And once we've created that workflow, we're able to put that into EasyMorph server and schedule it to happen in the background every hour or however often we want it to happen. And so that we know automatically those updates, the customer's information will be synced in the background in real time or in near real time in order to keep the two up to date. And it's one less manual task we have to do or opportunity for errors to occur and things not to get copied across. So I've set up a very simple workflow and a synchronization task. And that task I can run manually, but it will also be scheduled to run every hour. And it's going to go and check both of those systems, do the work necessary to sync them up in the background and make sure my customers are always in sync and never outdated and isolated information that's wrong and maybe causing problems. So the next of those problems we talked about is the ability to get data to users and information to users without them needing to know what data sits in which system, how to log into that system and access it, how to use that system to find the data that they need. And our example is very simple. It's got 3 data sources or systems involved. In reality, most business processes have got lots and lots and lots of systems and data involved. And it can be incredibly complex for users to be able to access that. And they'd have to learn how to use every one of those underlying tools. EasyMorph provides EasyMorph Explorer, which combines tools to abstract that data and information away from the technical sources and make it available to users in easy-to-use form. The foundation of which is the catalog, and the EasyMorph Explorer catalog allows us to add assets to those to bring that information into one place, wherever it may sit in reality, so that users can find it and access it. And Dimitri talked about the different types of assets that we can add to the catalog. We have typical data assets, tables of data about our customers, etc. We can also add folders of files wherever they might be, and make it so that users are able to access that data directly in here. So we talked about those purchase order documents. I don't need to go and log into Google Drive as a user. EasyMorph can make those available very easily to me, again, simply within EasyMorph itself. We can also add links to the relevant systems like Salesforce or our finance system. We can make it so they can run workflows to make sure those customers are in sync, etc. But even for this very simple process that we've talked about, we've added quite a few assets to this catalog, and it can become very, very big very quickly. So EasyMorph Explorer offers boards as a way to create curated homepages for users to be able to find that information much more quickly for them. And so I've created one for our sales team that puts the basic KPIs or metrics for them on there, as well as gives them shortcuts to some of the things they most often want to access and make them easily findable. One such example is that task to customize, to synchronize even our customers across our different systems. That's scheduled to run every hour, and maybe for some reason the sales team need to run it immediately to sync that data. We can make them able to do that by simply putting a link for them, and that will kick off that task. We'll be able to see that it's checking Salesforce and then the finance system and syncing up those users for us. And we know that immediately that's become available. They don't have to call anybody or ask anybody's assistance to try and get that to happen. We can just give them a quick shortcut and they can make that happen. The obvious other thing they want to do is to start to get data back. And so I, first of all, have asked to give me a list of all of our customers. And again, they're now in sync across those two different systems, so it doesn't matter which one they come from. And I, as a user, don't need to care. I just ask for a list of customers and it returns that information to me. And I'm able to filter that list of customers to find specific ones, etc., and interact and explore that list of customers as I would with any data set in EasyMorph. But I can also add commands, and Dimitri talked about the interlinking of assets so that they're explorable. I can start at one asset and from that work my way through all of the other data and non-data assets that are related to it. And to do that, I've added commands to my assets. So first of all, this is a customer's record and I want to view that in Salesforce. And so I've added a command which allows me to very quickly go straight to that individual customer's record in Salesforce so that I can find it very quickly and modify the opportunity or the problem or update it in some way if that's what I need to do. I've also added commands that can be to other systems just to show you that you're not restricted within those three systems that are our kind of business systems. One such example is looking up their street address. I've added a link to take me straight to Google Maps. And so EasyMorph goes and calculates the relevant link to Google Maps for me, and it brings that data immediately back for me to see and view. And if we go back to our set of data, of course, the most important thing is to be able to link to other sets of data as well. I've added commands which allow me to look at some of the relevant data sets that relate to each of these customers. And so to start with, let's take a look at the opportunities that we have available for one of our customers. Again, I don't need to know where it's coming from, how it's being obtained. EasyMorph handles all of that for the users, and it just goes and fetches the relevant data and brings it back for them. Again, they can have links to view these specific opportunities in Salesforce, but we can then also relink to other sets of data as well. So for each one of our closed won opportunities, we can view the invoice for that opportunity as well. Now, obviously, this now comes from a different system. It comes from our finance system. But again, I don't need to know or care that or have access. I'm able to simply follow that link, just like I did for any other data from our CRM system, and return the relevant information about the invoice, whether it's been paid, etc. So now the sales team are able to see this information when they're talking to the customer to see if they've got any outstanding invoices, they've not paid, etc., etc. Again, I can link directly to the finance system if I wanted to, but our other data source that we suggested was available is the PO documents, the purchase order documents sitting on Google Drive. Now, these are files, not sets of data, but it doesn't matter. They're achieved and linkable in just the same way. I can click on it and EasyMorph handles going and getting that from the relevant source. I don't need to know it's Dropbox. It could be any other location. If they move those files for some reason, need to be moved, again, they can just be moved in the background. EasyMorph can be pointed to the new location, and the users don't have to know that they've moved or how to access them in the new place. They can access them in exactly the same way they're always used to. And I can open and download that PDF document that it's made available to me for the purchase order and easily find that information without having to navigate away to other systems to find it. And one of the other sort of final problems that we talked about was able to make collaboration easier for our different teams involved in this process. Our sales team may get a call from a customer about a billing query or an invoicing problem, and they need to talk and interact with the finance team. Now, they could pick up the phone. They could also send them an instant message on Slack or Teams, or send them an email. And in fact, I could add commands to this to be able to send those messages automatically and seamlessly for them. But messages aren't always trackable and easy to sort of keep track of, and if you've had the answer back from the finance team. So in this instance, I've chosen to add a command to raise an invoicing query, and that command will be it's really simple. It pops up and asks me to enter the information. I will put in a simple description of the problem involved, and I can send that query off. Now, what that's actually done in the background is, if we go back to our board so that we can see our board, we can actually see that there's an issue section on our board. And a few seconds ago, we just added a new query for invoicing. Now, this went onto our sales board, but it could have equally have gone onto a finance board. And it's raised not an issue for them. It's trackable because it's there and it's on the board, and we can keep track of whether it's been tasked and actioned. It includes the description that they entered, but I've also automatically included all of the relevant information about the invoice that they're querying. And I've even added a link to that automatically to make it easy for the finance system to navigate to that specific issue or invoice, so that they can look at it, find out what the problem was, and help me solve the problem for our customer. And because it's an issue on a board, we are able to track the different statuses, so we can mark it as started, and when it's complete, we can mark it as done. And we can have different types of issues and all of that usual kind of ticketing system type information. All of it available, all of it within EasyMorph, one system again for them to be able to learn and use. And the final kind of abstraction capability we talked about, Dimitri mentioned, is the abstraction of code or logic. And one such example would be our opportunities. Now, we've got a bunch of open opportunities. We want to be able to prioritize those opportunities. And traditionally, we've had to go to our data science team or our data engineering team, who've built complex models, maybe using Python and machine learning, in order to rank our opportunities and put the most important ones at the top, so that we can action them and make sure we spend our time on those things that are important. Because it's a Python script and it's technical, it's not something traditionally that our sales team could run for themselves. Even if it's been created by our data science team, they would still not have the access to be able to go and run it. They wouldn't know how to run Python and even have it installed on their machines to use it. So luckily, EasyMorph, we can build another asset, and we can abstract away the code and make it available to them in order for them to be able to run it for themselves whenever they need, without having to go to the data science team and wait for them to rerun it for them. So if I take my opportunities, I can open the list of opportunities, and to start with, I just get a list of all of the open opportunities. I could look at the other customers related to those opportunities, but I've also added a command to be able to rank those opportunities. Now, this is a Python script in the background. It's asking what information I want to input and use as part of that ranking. So I've made it configurable. It can choose to just take the probability and the value into account. But we've also got other information, such as if they're a priority customer or not, what sales stage the opportunities are at, etc. And despite this being a Python script, which is scary to business users and not something that they would normally be able to run for themselves, they'd have to come to a technical data and scientist or Python programmer to run for them. We want to make this Python available, and we've done that and made it instantly available to them. So they can select what criteria they want to use. They don't need to know that it's a Python script. They don't need to know that any coding or how that works. They can simply make it available to them. EasyMorph takes care of asking them the relevant questions, configuring the parameters necessary, and bringing back a priority for that information, so that now I have all of my opportunities ranked and returned to me in a way that is prioritized, so that I know that the most important opportunities are at the top, and that's what I'm expecting to work on and prioritize. Again, abstraction of code and logic away from users, so they don't need to even know that that is something that's possible for them to run. They're retrieving it as if it's any other data set from any other source.